This is Donna Gockler, Director of Parks and Recreation, and what I can see right now is we have Sonia, Danny, Margie, Ross, and then we're waiting for Wendy, I believe, was going to facilitate. And for Park and Rec staff, we have Nathan, David. I saw Morgan for a moment. He disappeared and should be coming back. Ryan will be joining us later. And then Betsy and for us. If Wendy is unable to get on, whoops, there's somebody just called. No, that's Morgan, I think, or someone else. We may need a volunteer from our board to manage the meeting.
This is Ross. I can do it. Let me just find the agenda and everything on my computer here. But I sure hope Wendy shows up.
Will we have a quorum, Donna?
We do have a quorum now because we have Sonia, Margie, Danny, and Ross. I will see if I can reach Wendy. Us with our quorum. When Joe and Betsy give us the go ahead, we could probably start with roll call, approval of minutes, announcements, and public comments on items not on the agenda, if you want to do that. And then it would be relatively easy to move into Redford Park Master Plan. Those items are all pretty ready to go. So I'd say I'll put about one more minute and at least start us on those items if you're okay with it.
Sounds good.
And then somebody is on the line who is typing. So if you could make sure you are muted, that would be helpful.
You want all of us muted, Donna?
If you're quiet and your space is quiet, you do not mute, but if you're typing or eating, it's a good idea.
Oh, you're no fun.
Meetings get really interesting when somebody starts eating Doritos out of a bag or something.
Okay, I'll skip the bagel chips.
Ross, why don't you start us? We have a really long agenda. And if you're comfortable, we'd sure appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, I'll give it a try. If I say anything wrong, just feel free to correct me. Let's see. Let me just pull up the agenda. Okay, all right, I guess I call this meeting to order. July 14th, Parks and Recreation Board meeting. I think Donna, you kind of already did the roll call. So I'm gonna skip that. First off is the approval of the minutes from the previous month. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous month?
I so move. This is Sonia.
Do we have a second? Any comments on the minutes? Hearing no comments, I guess we can approve the minutes. Sorry, Sonia, you moved it. I'm probably doing this all out of the wrong order. So but I think we need a second now. Second to approve the minutes from last month. Can I second it?
Oh,
I guess I can.
Sorry, I was having some trouble. I can second that. This is Danny.
Okay, thanks, Danny. All right, so the minutes are approved.
So Ross, go ahead and ask all in favor of approving.
Sorry. Yeah, all in favor of approving the minutes from last month, say aye.
Aye.
Ross says aye.
And Daniel's muted again.
Did Margie say aye?
Aye, sorry.
Thanks, Danny. I still haven't heard from Margie. Is Margie there?
Son, we might have lost Margie.
Margie?
I think she's, whoops, let's see. Sorry, folks, people are coming and going. I have a Western Division 2. Is that Wendy? Does anybody know who's on as West Division 2?
And there's a Brute.
Okay.
Who is Bruce? Bruce Costa. Is that Margie?
Yep, that was Margie. She's back on.
Okay. Can she say aye to the motion to approve the minutes?
Right, I
Perfect. Thank you, Margie.
can't see anything.
Okay, moving on. Any announcements?
None at this time, Ross. I'll wait and see if we have time at the end for any updates.
Okay, thank you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Wendy is here.
Jeez. Sorry,
Hey,
I've been trying to get in the whole time. Sorry about that.
It's okay. So I'm gonna thank you, Ross. Ross has started.
Yep.
We're through roll call. We have approval of the minutes. We're past announcements. We are now at public guest comments, not on the agenda. Items not on the agenda. And then just so Wendy knows, we have Margie, Danny, Ross, and Sonia on. So we have 5 board members. Do you want to take it from there, Wendy? Okay, we're on a hold. Sometimes Zoom meetings are fun.
really makes you miss the old days here.
Ross, why don't you go ahead and
Okay.
ask for public or guest comments that are non-agenda, and then Joe or Betsy, I'm not seeing anybody online, so after he asks, if you could let us know if anybody's waiting, that would be great.
Okay, are there any public or guest comments for items not on the agenda?
Joe or Betsy, is there anybody in our queue? I'm not seeing anybody, but I'm not sure I'd be able to from my.
Nobody's in there right now.
Okay.
And I did see we received 2 comments, right, by email, but they're for items on the agenda. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Wendy and Ross, you two can decide if you want Wendy to take over from here or if you're going to keep going.
Well, I want Wendy to take over. Oh, now you're talking.
No, I'm happy to if you want me to.
It's fine.
We're on
Lost to
the
know.
item now.
Okay,
Redford Park.
where are we?
We're at action item, the first action item, Redford Park.
Okay, so Ross, it's up to you.
Let's go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Oh, okay. So, oh my God. So we've already done the welcome script. We've already done, so we are now on the Redford Park agenda. And so Don, am I supposed to read now from the script as far as if people want to comment? Is that what you want me to do next?
Yes, please.
Okay, so, okay. So we are now on the Redford Park Master Plan. And if you'd like to comment on this item, we're going to open the phone lines and take comment after the staff report. Our meeting administrator will put the call-in numbers on the screen now. and I'm going to read some of them for people in the audience with vision difficulties. The numbers are 1-267-831-0333 and 1-888-475-4499. And the meeting ID is 960-049-3694. And we will answer calls in the order they are received. And I'll call on you by your phone number. So please make sure to mute your computer. Tell us your name and what is on your mind. So I'll be observing a speaking limit of 3 minutes per person so we can hear from everyone. And again, please be sure to mute your computer to avoid an echo when you're speaking. So with that, the staff report, Nathan? Nathan, I think you're muted.
Can you guys hear me now?
There we go. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So just let me know if you are seeing this. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for having us. So I'm here to show you the conceptual master plan for Redford Park, talk a little bit about the public process to date, and I'm here to answer any questions as well. So Redford Park is part of the Canyon Creek Village neighborhood, which is located between Expressway and I-90, kind of across the street from the hub. This neighborhood is primarily single-family residences. There are several county-owned parks in the neighborhood, although Redfern is the only one that has any sort of amenities that have been developed. So this is an overview of Redfern Park, the existing conditions. It is a really beautiful park. The neighborhood has a lot of pride in this park. A lot of the homes face the park, and so there's a lot of community involvement here. The HOA has been maintaining it. It's primarily open green space. There are a number of trees. There's an existing playground, an existing single basketball court. There are some horseshoe pits. It is in fair condition. The soils are primarily heavy clays, and so there's a lot of drainage problems. The playground is in need of replacement. It's pretty old. It does not have, it's not currently ADA accessible. But there's really nice views of the North Hills from this spot. And again, the neighborhood does have a lot of pride in this park. Parks and Rec has done an assessment of the park, and we've gone into some details into the conditions of the various amenities that are here. So the public process today, in October of 2019, we had a neighborhood planning workshop where we invited the public to come and actually create designs for the park. We then took what we learned from that workshop and we came back and we created a draft master plan, which we presented in a neighborhood open house in January. We had a public online comment period and a survey where we got feedback about the plan. And from that, we've done a couple edits. And in June of this year, we had an MOA between the city and the HOA that was adopted and signed by the mayor. And then today we're asking Park Board to adopt the master plan with the narrative. So in our park design workshop, we had 21 neighborhood participants, 6 children participated. In the open house, we had 20 surveys returned to us, 8 were from online and 12 were from the open house in person. And I'll go into some of those questions in a minute. This is a word cloud from the October workshop. And so it shows the priority of amenities that were from the different designs that the neighbors created. And the colored words are amenities that we've included within the draft master plan. And so I think you can kind of see we've got a lot of the stuff that people are looking for in this park. So this is the conceptual master plan. And this has been revised since the open house. So this is what we're presenting to you to adopt today. And I'll just go through basics of the park. So it still is a very open park. We have a large active multi-use lawn, which you can see is large enough for a 5x5 soccer game. But then there's also adjacent spaces that you could have different types of events happening. There's a 40-person pavilion, a multi-use sport court that is striped for pickleball and basketball. We have a larger playground for this area that could be a mix of ages from 2 to 5, as well as 5 to 12-year-old equipment could be put in there. That would be designed through a separate process. Currently, the school bus stops right here in the park, and so the neighbors have the desire to create a more formalized school bus stop here. And we thought that it would be great if this stop not only provided a place for kids to have a sheltered place, but it could be a kiosk for people to post neighborhood events. The neighborhood also liked the idea of having a little free library here. And this is a really heavily trafficked location along the park, right along Chesapeake Way. And so this is a great spot to have a feature like that. The health department requires that we provide a toilet of some sort for the pavilion. And so what we find is the best for our parks is to provide a portalette. And we have a portable toilet enclosure. And it's sited here along Chesapeake Way. And so we put it in this location because it's easily accessible for maintenance from the street. It's easily viewable from the street. And it also is across the street from an alleyway. And so it's not adjacent to any private property owner. Large open lawn space over here as well. So if someone's playing soccer in this area, there's still enough space for people to have other types of activities. And then there's this location up here in the northwest of the park that is parkland. This is currently where the horseshoe pits are that are, I think, very, very rarely used. And so we thought this would be a great place for a community garden. And this would be something that the HOA or the neighborhood would maintain and implement. So if that's something that there is a desire of residents to do, this would be a great location for that. We are specifying different tree species in this park, and this is primarily due to the fact that the clay soils are so heavy that we want to make sure that we're getting trees that are going to thrive in this type of environment. So in the survey, we asked the question, the draft master plan reflects public comments made at the park design workshop. People strongly agreed with this. Another question, the draft master park plan meets my expectations. Again, people agree with this statement. And then we asked, please rank your anticipated use of the following park amenities. And so this will allow us to phase in the implementation of the master plan. And not surprisingly, the playground ranked highest, followed by the active multi-use lawn and the picnic pavilion. The amenities or park design features I like best are, again, the playground, pavilion, open space, trees. So it starts to give a sense of what this park should feel like. And what I would change about the park design and why. The biggest comment we got was less density of trees. And so in the design that I just showed you, we actually originally had more trees around the perimeter. And so we've removed some of those trees to create a little bit less density, which I think is more appropriate for this space. So I'm going to go back to that master plan and I can answer any questions that anybody has.
This is Sonia. I see where you had mentioned that there is pickleball, but I see on that little slide you just showed that they didn't want pickleball.
There were some comments. I think some people thought that pickleball wasn't going to get used. We also received a comment that one person wanted to see a tennis court. So what we found with previous designs is that pickleball and basketball can work really well together. And so this design actually allows for someone to be playing basketball and pickleball at the same time. Whereas, so for example, if we were to include tennis court, because of the size of it, the court would have to be much larger for it to be truly multi-use. And so I still think that this is a good option because it provides a multitude of sports. And we did receive a comment about pickleball not being a desired amenity, but that was probably just, I think it was just one person. So take that with a little bit of a grain of salt.
Nathan, this is Ross. I think the public comment process that you guys go through is awesome, and I think the plans are awesome. I guess my only question is, what do we see for costs to build this, and where is that cost going to come from?
So we haven't gone into any details on cost yet. So this is a really very conceptual plan. Our next step would be to look back at what the prioritization of the amenities are. And I think if we looked at that question, it was the playground was the highest priority for the neighborhood. And I would think that that makes sense in my mind too, as the existing playground really does need to be replaced. It's pretty old. It's got some safety issues. And now that the city has annexed this park, I think it's a really big priority. And so our next step, assuming that this gets adopted by you guys today, would be to start to look at how we can implement that. This would be, the whole plan would be phased in. So for example, to do any of the grading, we would have to really think about amending the soils, trying to make sure that the drainage works. And so that's a pretty big project. Whereas I think some of the other things like the playground, maybe starting to phase in some of the trees could happen over time. And so I think that's really important that we look at what are the priorities and what can we do now and kind of chip away at this over time.
And what I would add to that, this is Donna, is Ross, this would probably be in the 800 to 1.1, 800,000 to 1.1, 1.2 million, depending on where we're at with construction and inflation. And if we were to redo the whole thing, just to give you a sense of the approximate, and generally saying some of the increase in size of improvements could be eligible for impact fees, but the bulk of this would be Park District. It could be eligible for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant application, which is a 1-to-1 match. What we've submitted for fiscal year 21 is a request for, I want to say, around $120,000 to replace their playground.
Awesome. Thanks for that information. I have a second question, and that is how many of our neighborhood parks like this one have master plans, and how many more are needed?
I would guess that about all of our community parks have a master plan, although the Playfair Park master plan is an interim plan and needs to be updated. The neighborhood plans, I would guess that we're somewhere in the area of about 1/3 of them complete. We generally do these at request of the neighborhood council or an HOA, or anytime the park is in need of renovations. And just overall for the board, one of the great things about the master planning that we do all over the place is it does build a lot of support and consensus. It helps us have a cohesive park system, and it also creates a number of shovel-ready projects, if you will, which we've been very successful at what I'll call surprise or unexpected, unanticipated funding sources, because we've had these plans and good public involvement.
Thank you, Donna.
I'd like to just say really quick, I just got an email from Juniper Davis. I misspoke earlier. Some of the other parks in the area are actually HOA-owned parks. They're not county-owned parks. So just amend the record there.
I think that
Any other questions for Nathan? If not, Donna, this is Wendy. I am not sure how to tell if there's someone on who wants to make a comment. Where does that show up?
Joe?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay, so you'll just let us know if there's a question or comment from the
Yeah,
public?
I'll see them come in, but I'm not seeing anybody
Okay.
at this time.
Okay, great. So I believe we are ready for a motion. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah. Just pulling it up.
I so move to adopt the Redford Park Master Plan, including narrative, and this is Sonia Verlanick.
Thank you, Sonia.
And I
A sec.
second.
Perfect.
Who seconded?
Margie.
Okay, and any comment? I believe we need to take a roll call vote. Is that correct, Donna?
Yes, let's go ahead and do a roll call since everybody.
So who does the roll call? Do I do that?
It's me, sorry.
Great.
Ross Mollenhauer,
Aye.
Wendy Ninteman,
Aye.
Sonia Verlanick,
Aye.
Daniel Gundlach,
Aye.
Margie Costa,
Aye.
5 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstains.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank
Yep.
you. Nathan.
Next item on our agenda is the Invermere Park Master Plan. And I believe, David, we have a presentation on that.
Not letting me do anything.
Joe, you're live.
Sorry, I'm trying to.
Little entertainment for today for all of us. David, are you able to present? I'm guessing that Joe is trying to get him able to present.
That's a good guess. There we go. We can see your screen, David, but we can't hear you.
He usually has so much more to say.
Hey, I'm unmuted.
Yay, that's awesome.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. This is the Invermere Park Master Plan proposal. Invermere Park is a 20-year-old subdivision. The original condition was placed, or subdivision conditions were placed by the Board of County Commissioners. And they required that dedication of about a 3-acre park site that would be graded flat for basically a full-size soccer field. Unfortunately, the property that is deeded has 40 feet of grade fall from Carla Joe Lane south to, I'm not even sure what lane that is anymore, Lem Lane, I think. And so a soccer field would be very difficult and expensive to build there. In addition to that, in the intervening 20 years, there's been quite a bit of park development in the Linda Vista area here. And if you can see my cursor, that's Rainbow Park. The next one down is Whitetail Park. These properties here that are west of Invermere are owned by the county. They're beautiful open space, but they're quite steep. And as such, given the amount of parkland around this neighborhood, this site will be maintained by the Homeowners Association. In February, the city and the county staff got together with the developer and held a master plan meeting. We had approximately 45 people attend. There was a considerable conversation about maintenance of the site before we got around to master planning. when it came down to master planning, some of the values and goals that we expressed were to create a shared vision for the park that provides opportunities for active recreation, passive recreation, and preservation of open space that respects area residents and the privacy of neighbors. We had considerable input on this because the neighbors had a fairly wide range of desires, but the biggest ones were to ensure the park was ADA accessible, that there were pathways, and that there was some green area. I'm going to get to the park master plan next here. If I can find it here, there is a master plan in your packet. You see this master plan here now? Dated June 19th.
Not yet, David. You still have your GIS map up.
Okay, I will close that. Attempting. Zoom is not being cooperative. Okay. Joe, how do I switch views on my screen?
David, it's whatever's on your screen. So can you minimize what's on your screen right now?
Or move one screen to another?
Yeah, let's see if we can get that done here. Okay. Just try it again. Okay. Nathan's helping the technologically disabled. So, can you see the proposed master plan?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this proposed master plan kicked off the most of the neighborhood's highest needs, which were connectivity, trails, preservation of views. There's beautiful views across the valley to the north and west from this location. They wanted a gathering spot, and they wanted to ensure that you could get up to the grass area if you use a wheelchair or other mobility device. The eastern edge there, where you got the homes along Andrea Lane, are probably 10, 15 feet in grade higher than the adjoining graded green grass area. There are a number of park trees. We're just showing a few of them that what we want to preserve. We'll work with the engineer to preserve more if possible. And in general, I think we've had good support from the neighborhood. There are a few people that would like to see more or don't feel the developer's doing enough. However, this seems to satisfy the Board of County Commissioners' original intent to ensure that this neighborhood had a local park. We've provided you subsequent people's comments. This is an affordable park. It's about a little over $100 for each HOA member based on a maintenance impact statement that we prepared for them. So it's affordable, and then they have some growth room here. Area 12 shows future expansion. So with that, I would stand for questions or ask for your approval. City approval of the master plan would then just be conveyed to the county park board, who would refer then to the Board of County Commissioners for not only master plan approval, but also for amendment of the Invermere subdivisions terms of conditions for their development.
This is Ross.
Okay, thanks, David.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go
Wendy,
ahead, Ross.
you're-
Nope, go for it.
Okay, I have a question. I guess this seems different, approving a master plan, this one than the Redfern one. The Redfern one was correct me if I'm wrong, if I misunderstand the process, but Redfern was where we went out to the neighborhood and asked them what they wanted. This is a park that the developer is telling us what they're gonna build for, I mean, it's a different process, right? We're working-
Not really, Ross. We held a neighborhood meeting in February. We had about 45 residents attend. The developer was responsible for doing the notice to the residents in this development. And since this development is about 110 units, we invited only residents from around there, since they will be maintaining this public park site. So we didn't have the expanded notice to everybody within a half a mile. And we're just trying to ensure that the right kind of park is built at this location, because a soccer field would be very expensive to maintain. It wouldn't make a lot of sense because of the 40 feet of fall. You'd be forever chasing your balls down the field. And there's no parking really. So to that's the extent why we've got into this, is that we have a split ownership between the city and the county. And we have a subdivision condition that's 20 years old that would have provided for a soccer field in a location where a soccer field probably shouldn't go and probably isn't needed. When we finished the master plan in June, we did send out copies of the plan and requested comments, and we've received a fair number of them, of which most are included, well, to my knowledge, all are included in your packet. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I guess in my mind, I'm just trying to understand if it's enough. It sounds like you're saying it meets all the requirements that were laid out with subdivision.
Well, the conditions of the subdivision will have to be amended, and that's why the developer has to go through this process, is to get approval from, first of all, to have public involvement, to ensure that the condition really doesn't make sense, and pretty much all the neighbors agree it doesn't make sense. And if you're going to work with the site, here's an option to do this with it, which is to create about a 18,000 square foot lawn area with a circular path around it, a gathering area that if they wanted to in future put a shelter, playground or things like that, they could do that. Be a wonderful place to run your dog. And then, so subsequent to city park board's approval of the master plan, the county park board has to take action on it. And then the Board of County Commissioners have to take action on it. And then that sets them up for an opportunity to amend the condition on the subdivision.
Ross, I do think it is, this is Donna again, it is different because what we're doing is we're assisting a developer and meeting the developers, the conditions that were established by the Board of County Commissioners 20 years ago. We've tried to mirror our typical public process, but it is somewhat different because of where we're at with the conditions and the development.
Thank you. Okay.
So
And this is our chance. I mean, the stuff, if we wanted a pavilion, would that be the developer's responsibility to build the pavilion?
So it has to be a negotiated outcome. The county is responsible for setting for amending the conditions. We have asked the developer's engineer for a cost estimate on this and improving the paths, regrading the site, bringing in an irrigation system for that 18,000 square foot area, and then compacting the gravel trails is pretty close to, well, it's over $180,000 worth of value. And the city is holding a $180,000-ish performance bond for the original condition to construct a flat soccer field. So in my mind, that's a comparable value, but I think it'd be a push to get the developer to add additional amenities here. They've agreed to garbage cans, irrigation systems, the grading, the sodding or seeding, restoration of the open spaces for beneficial plantings, and 2 picnic tables and 2 mutt mitt stations is what they've agreed to provide.
So the cost of construction would become from this performance bond, and then the homeowners would, through their assessment, would be responsible for maintenance. Is that what I understand?
The performance bond is being held as a standard subdivision condition for phase 2 improvements in his subdivision. The master plan provides for a alternate way to meet that. And that would be up to the county to decide the conditions of the development conditions and the like.
So David, this is Wendy. Question about, I think it was exhibit, public comment number 2, just the comment from somebody about how much what the developer promised at the beginning has changed, and that these people bought with expectations that things were going to be different than they are now. And this person was requesting more meetings. I was just wondering where you landed on that one. And yeah, I'm still trying to figure this out too, because it's between the developer and the county is what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, but can you speak to that? Like, do you feel like there needs to be another hearing to discuss those possible changes? It sounds like they're pretty dramatic changes from when first proposed.
So the original condition provides for a significant, here, let me pull it up so I can read it to you.
Can you be sure to talk about sizes too? I'm curious to follow up on Wendy's question about what we're seeing on your screen right now. Is that half acre, 1.5 acre? What was originally promised and what is being delivered as far as sizes goes?
So that's around 3 acres of parkland. All right. The condition, so the Invermere Park subdivision was conditioned such that Invermere Park shall be designed to accommodate year-round active recreational use. Improved parkland with phase 2 shall encompass not less than 11% of the allotted area for phase 2 Invermere Park shall be graded and seeded prior to final plat approval of phase 2. An area 340 feet by 200 feet shall be graded within Invermere Park not to exceed 1.5% slope for active recreation use. Irrigation shall be provided for phase 2 Invermere Park prior to final plat approval of phase 2, and irrigation shall be provided for phase 3 prior to final plat approval of phase 3. So that was one of the adopted standards that specifies basically a soccer size field.
And they didn't at the time that stipulation was put down, there was no specific location picked for this park, right? I mean, the developer could have chosen a flat home spot to put this park, but instead now he's choosing to put it on sloped ground and he probably already built houses on the flat ground. Is that what a skeptic would say right now, David?
That was 20 years ago. I have no idea. I do know that what has been that the location was fixed in the subdivision plan. So what happened back in the day 20 years ago when the county was overseeing subdivisions up here? I mean, this area wasn't annexed until last year. And you know why they went and thought a 340 by 200 square foot flat area was a good idea on a hillside, I don't know.
Are there any other questions for David? And I take it that there's nobody who's calling in who wants to make a comment? Is that correct?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. So I believe we should be ready for a motion on the Invermere Park Master Plan. Anybody have a motion?
Hold on, sorry, this is Ross. One more comment is in one of those public comments, the second one from Heather Holbrook. She says that there's no playground, gazebo, or shade area or any benches for seating, all of which were ranked highly on the residents' values and interest lists. And we haven't seen those lists, right? I mean, when you walked us through the Redfern project just a minute ago, we saw those lists, what was important to the neighborhood. Is Heather Holbrook correct?
There were a number of
addressing this.
Improvements like a playground and things like that. We sent you a list, or I included a link to a list that was generated. Give me a second. So I have so the interest and values exercise results for the number of respondents. 24 people wanted this park to be low maintenance. The perimeter path had a total of 21 people to support it. 16 people wanted natural areas. 14 people wanted an irrigated green area. 13 people wanted a gazebo or picnic shelter or a gathering area. The gathering area was by far the largest request. Then followed by playgrounds, seating area, views, shade, accessible, electric services, mutt stations, privacy for adjacent homes. And that's pretty much getting down to that's pretty much getting down to where we're having 1 and 2 people high values. So highest value that we did not provide for was 11 people wanting a playground, and a playground, it would be a reach to require the developer.
So David, that was going to be my next question. Basically, what we're doing here is making a motion for the existing green space that the developer has to provide. And then down the road, they can come back and ask for the playground, et cetera, that the Parks Department would have to provide?
These are public parklands. There's a third piece yet coming to the city or the county. And as a public park, yes, the residents there could ask for funding for a playground, or they could put money towards it. We have lots of examples of that throughout our system where we're partnering with homeowners to make something happen. But yeah, we're trying to ensure that the developer meets his base level requirement or obligation for building the park. And that doesn't include playgrounds and electric services and stuff like that.
Okay.
But it is provided for, and it would be possible that city and county could contribute to a playground or fully fund it.
There does look like to be somebody in the waiting room. I'm gonna go ahead and admit them.
Okay. So we are on the Invermere Park Master Plan. And we do have, it sounds like we have somebody who wants to make a comment on this agenda item.
And it would be possible that city and county.
Yes, this is Gilbert Larson.
Great. And Gilbert, what is your comment?
Am I live now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. I was just calling in response to some of the questions. I represent the developer. I'm the engineer. When we first met with the homeowners, the first thing we did was to ask them if they would prefer to continue to have a soccer field, which we are willing to build, or if they wanted to have the option of changing the plan. We're still willing to build the soccer field. This is, to be honest, this has been a delay in our schedule, and it's not a savings to the developer. It's actually been an expense. But what we wanted to do was to offer to the homeowners that the maintenance and the operation of a soccer field wasn't going to provide much of an amenity to their neighborhood, and it was going to be expensive. So we wanted to just provide options, and hopefully that's what is in front of you today, is an option that, well, we know from meeting with them, that's the option they prefer. I'm available if there's more questions. I can perhaps answer those from the developer. Thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. Does anyone on the board have questions for Gilbert?
Gilbert, maybe you can, this is Ross Bowenhauer. Maybe you can just tell the board your role on this project, because they might not know that.
My role is as the engineer, and I represent the developer, Drake Lamb. And hopefully that's what is in front of you today, is an option that, what we know from meetings.
Great, thank you, Gilbert. Are there any other questions for Gilbert from the board or staff? Okay.
This is Ross. Sorry, yeah, this is Ross. I do have a question. Gilbert, you said the soccer field is planned, but maybe not desired. Is that what I heard you just say? And if it is planned, where is the plan for it to go?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, this is Ross Moenhauer. I guess I'm trying to understand your comment. You said that the soccer field, I think I heard you say the soccer field is planned for a different location?
No, this has always been the location of where the park would go. There's never been a change in where Invermere Park would be located. It's been that way since the initial preliminary plat. The option was to either put a soccer field in Invermere Park and put that onto the homeowners association, or do something that they felt was more desirable once we had residents in there. We're just offering them that option. The choice is whether we follow the original condition and just build a soccer field, or whether we do something that, after meeting with the residents, that we believe is more in harmony. What the developer didn't want to do was to just stick the homeowners with the maintenance and operation of a soccer field that they really didn't want to have in their neighborhood. Preliminary plat. The option was to either put a soccer field in Invermere Park, put that onto the homeowners association, or do something that they felt was more desirable once we had residents in there. We're just offering them that option. The choice is whether we follow the original conditions and just build a soccer field, or whether we do something that, after meeting with the residents, residents that we believe is more harmony. What the developer didn't want to do was to just fix the homeowners with maintenance and operation of the soccer field that they really didn't want to have in their neighborhood. The option is to either in Invermere Park. That they felt was more desirable once we had everything. We're just offering them that option. The choice is whether we business.
Joe, have we, is there a second person in the meeting now?
No. Gilbert,
okay.
you are still talking and we can't hear you.
Actually, I
I'm
think
not talking.
it's the
Yeah, it sounds like-
recording.
It just keeps
Yeah.
repeating what I said earlier. I'm
No.
sorry.
Yeah. I thought I saw another person enter the waiting room, but so Gilbert, thank you very much. And Joe, there's nobody else waiting to make a public
No, that
comment?
was David's phone rejoining.
Okay, great. So I believe we are ready for a motion from the board, if anyone is so inclined. To make a motion on the Invermere Park Master Plan.
This is Sonia Verlanik. I so move to approve the Invermere Park Master Plan as presented by David.
Thank you, Sonia. Do we have a second?
This is Ross. I'll second.
Great. And any other comment? So can we take a roll call vote, please?
Ross Mullenhour. Ross Mullenhour.
Aye.
Wendy Ninteman.
Aye.
Sonia Verlanik.
Aye.
Daniel Gundlach.
Aye.
Margie Costa.
Aye.
We have 5 yeses, 0 nos, and 0 abstains.
Great. Thank you, David. So our next agenda item is on the Clark Fork Island Preserve. And I believe Morgan Valiant has a presentation for us. And just a quick reminder that if you do want to comment on this item, we'll open the phone lines after Morgan's staff report and call on you at that point. So Morgan, are you here? We're still seeing David's screen, I think, unless it's your screen now, Morgan.
Morgan
Morgan, I
is
think-
here. He's using David, so let me get him going.
Okay. Yeah, we've got Invermere Park graphic, but we've got Clark Fork management plan on the screen. There we go. And I don't know, Morgan, if you're muted.
Morgan,
but we
can you hear
cannot
us?
you.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can now. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, sorry, I had some computer problems. We are just had to do a quick sanitization of David's office and switch over so that I can share screens with you all today. So this is a pretty quick presentation. You know, this plan has been working its way through the public process for almost 3 years now. I've given multiple presentations on it to Park Board, including one recently, just back before the world changed in early March. And at that point, we pretty much had a final draft of the plan, and the Park Board recommended that we conduct a public comment period on the plan. So to give an idea, you an idea of what we're working on here, this is a property adjacent to the Tower Street Conservation Area. This area that you see in green here, let me see if I can get a better, this area you see in green here, outlined in green, is the existing 120 acres of Tower Street Conservation Area.
the Clark Fork Islands plan is all this additional acreage that you see. We got multiple different properties that have come together, including lands behind the wastewater treatment plant and Garden City compost that the city has always owned. This large blue parcel was purchased from the Klaus family with 2006 open space bond funds. We've got a couple parcels down here that are crosshatched that are currently owned by the county, but we're in negotiations or have made recommendations to have them transferred to the city. We've got a couple other parcels that came on with adjacent developments down here off of the Hyberta Street trailhead. And then the Colon Ditch property here in red, which is basically a major connection for the Milwaukee Line commuter trail, which you see this kind of dashed red and cream color line that leaves the screen. And so this, of course, is the route for the Great American Trail and is a high priority to get this commuter trail across the Clark Fork River and then on up into the Mullen area. And there's already a big planning process that I'm sure you guys have been tracking in both the Bill Grant and the Mullen area master plan to make that connection happen through some of those neighborhoods. So I'll give you just another quick snapshot, I guess, on what we're looking at as far as the build out for this plan, and then get into the public comments. Essentially, we're looking at several different trailheads from a local access point, which is more of our kind of neighborhood access point down here at Hyberta, to access some seasonal trails that extend out onto some islands here, to a major connection along the commuter trail where the commuter trail network would cross through the Clark Fork Islands property, and then also another major trailhead over here at the site of the old animal control building by wastewater treatment plant. And that trail would be one that would originally be built just as kind of a natural surface trail. This is the Garden City Ponds Trail that would get folks to the commuter trail, but it would just be a natural surface trail that would be PETA only until the commuter line got built, at which time this would be widened, become packed gravel, and be opened to bikes. The couple other things here to point out on the map. This Clark Fork Islands plan is really focused on the natural areas that you see here, the chain of islands that connect onto the Tower Street Conservation Area. There will be a separate planning process, and we've recognized basically a 50-foot envelope that would be the Milwaukee Trail line, and so that Milwaukee corridor will be planned at another process at another time, and that's going to involve doing some major engineering to get some bridges back in and retrofitting some existing railway bridges. There will also be a separate planning process, which Nathan is currently working on right now, to develop Coley Park, which is this red parcel. And so Colon Ditch family, as part of the transfer to the city, we agreed to name this Coley Park. This is kind of being envisioned as a small neighborhood park. We will be looking at putting in a play structure somewhere here. And then also, this is really going to serve as that transition zone from kind of dense urban areas into natural park preserves. And so this whole area that within the Clark Fork Islands plan has been designated by the park board as a park preserve. Park preserves are to be managed primarily for habitat and natural characteristics with passive recreation. And so this is the same way that we manage the larger Tower Street Conservation Area, Mount Jumbo, Mount Sentinel, all that kind of stuff. In addition to the trails plan, one thing that we've recognized is a lot of this area is within the Greater Grass Valley birding area, which is a nationally recognized birding area. It will be and has great birding habitat. And one of the big reasons for purchasing some of these islands were for preservation of that bird habitat. Our natural resource inventories that we did showed not only a significant amount of use by avian species, but many other species of concern, both plant and animal. We are recommending on this large island actually having no dogs allowed at all. And then this pet-only trail would be really something that would be primarily a birding loop. And we do have the option to put up some, birding blinds or have an adoption process through our local partners at the Audubon Society. We've also recognized that there's areas that we have pretty high habitat values with very limited opportunities for access. So if you notice this island here coming off the Milwaukee Trail, the lower portion of this island is actually on private property. And actually, I need to fix this map so it shows that we've got our, this is also private property. And there's just not really good trails potential here. And there's also a high density of Lewis's woodpecker nesting sites. Same thing with this area over here. It's really kind of a marshy trail to nowhere. And so we would actively discourage public access into that area, not promote or build trails. As acquisitions occur and potentially, if any of these lands transfer, we would definitely be able to offer more access in other areas. But these areas just really would be set aside for habitat. The last map, and I'm just going through these maps, they are attached to the plan that was in your packet, but they're a little small, and so it's hard to see the legend especially. We also have our signage package and fencing package. That's a really important point, are part of managing people. We've got some ends of public access that we need to do where where trails enter private property. We've got some wooden fencing that we're going to put along the Milwaukee Trail to reinforce areas where we don't want people to go. We got heavy sign packages that would go in at areas where we have rules changing. So in this case, you'd have a bike rack, interpretive sign, and more signage about the restrictions on the birding island. We also recognize a great opportunity for interpretive signage along the Garden City Ponds Trail, talking about cities, what we do as a city with our waste. And so, Missoula is unique in that we are managing our wastewater here, pumping treated solids over into the compost facility, making compost, putting a bunch of this treated water into a poplar farm right here, and then actually harvesting wood waste and putting it back over here to make compost. And that's a pretty unique story and situation that we have that I think would be a really cool thing to interpret along this Garden City Ponds Trail. We also have the need for this is a dashed line here is higher levels of security fencing. Obviously, we have a industrial type area with heavy equipment moving around adjacent to a public natural area. And so we want to make sure we have some separation between those different uses. To give you, there's a couple other things that were added, and I'm not going to go through these in their entirety. We do have a brief report that I typed up after the June 24th meeting of the Conservation Lands Advisory Committee. Like I said, honestly, this plan for only 125 acres has been, of all the rec plans we've created on conservation lands, and this is actually a recreation and special resource management plan because we've got some very unique resources on site as well. This has by far received the most extensive public process. I think we had at least 12 CLAC meetings with some field trips. We presented it in 2 open space advisory committee meetings. We brought it to Park Board at least 5 times. And then we actually did I think a 27-day public comment period where we had 273 people visit the site online, 135 people downloaded the plan. We got 46 comments. And at their meeting on the 24th, we went through those comments and made edits to the plan. And we'll get into those edits really shortly. This report is basically gives you just a little snapshot of that public process, talks about mainly what comments we reviewed that actually did not create or generate substantial edits to the plan. So we wanted to make sure that we recognized everybody's comments, regardless of whether or not it caused a change to the plan. the big changes that we did have in the plan, and if you want to follow along in the draft, I have made it easy for you by highlighting exact areas where we have added new comment. One thing that really came out was that there was a lot of concern about resource damage, especially around this Garden City Ponds Trail. This North Bank Slough and these ponds that we're just calling Garden City Ponds used to be connected. They're not connected now. Someday we'd like to reconnect them. But highest levels of sensitive species diversity and certainly really important bird nesting habitat, both waterfowl and birds that are nesting in these willow thickets and shrubs around the area. And we kind of heard that loud and clear. There was a lot of calls for, there were some people saying don't build the trail. There were some people saying don't allow dogs on the trail. After a lot of discussion, and I don't know if John O'Connor's on the call, but he was definitely involved with this. I think we had a really robust discussion, and I'd certainly like to get his feedback on some of this once I'm done with my dialogue here. But we did, CLAC did recognize adding, changing that trail from dog on voice restraint to dog on leash. And so this will be a dog on leash trail. This really, in the long run, does make sense, because if this becomes a primary or a secondary connector trail to get these neighborhoods out in the reserve area to the Milwaukee line, the Milwaukee line already does have dog on leash regulations. And so keeping that regulation in place from the get-go is really important, rather than trying to, put the dog back in the bag by making it on leash once we build the commuter trail. Some other edits that we did were some clarification edits, basically reaffirming that that city parks and open space are closed to animal trapping by the public. We do have allowance to work with FWP to look at expanding our bow hunting in this area for deer. There have been issues with animal traps in the area, and so we just wanted to reaffirm that trapping is not allowed on this property. And so that got added in section 3 of the document. The other edits were reaffirming that the need for an open space park ranger position and or ambassador. This was a position that was recognized in the 2010 Conservation Lands Management Plan as being critical. We kind of have a part-time one right now, but with the way that all of our parks are growing, this is one that we really just felt it's important not just to have great signage there, but also have that presence out there to help educate and enforce our rules. We also added, and this is a edit I still need to make to the map, but a wood rail fencing that would run right along the side of this Garden City Ponds Trail, just to keep folks and canines out of these ponds where we've recognized as having high habitat potential. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole here. I think this report is here, and I can definitely take questions on it. The rest of the comments really fell into 4 broad categories. That was increased infrastructure, from parking, more parking, to emergency call boxes, to fenced dog parks, to water fountains. There's a lot of concerns around transients. And because of the relationship of this property to the Reserve Street Bridge, which is right here. There were some general comments about the Milwaukee Trail and bridges. There were some talks about not building the Garden City Ponds Trail. There was also quite a bit of talk from the neighbors about this Orchard Homes Levee Trail, which is the one that runs across the levee. This section of levee is on city property. The rest of the levee, although it would be a great trail connection to get from Coley Park to the Hyberta trails, is actually all on private property. And so there's a maintenance easement, but there is no public access. And so it's not really within the scope of this plan to open that up. There's some other maintenance issues as far as vegetation management, trail maintenance, ordinance enforcement. And, again, this report really sums those up, and I'd be happy to go through them, but in the interest of time, I'd also be happy to just kind of take some comments. And right now, we feel that this plan is ready for adoption. CLAC unanimously recommended that that the park board adopt the plan so that city staff can start moving forward with plan implementation. John, I don't know if you're out there, but if there's anything you want to add, please do.
Hey, Morgan, it's Wendy Ninteman. I don't think John's on the call.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't
Okay.
last time we checked.
No worries.
But thank you for the presentation. And I have a question. Can you speak a little bit more on the transient issue? I did read the report on that piece, and I understand the concern. And again, we're saying that the problem should be alleviated with more public access, kind of what we've said before related to this issue. So can you talk a little bit more about how, I'm really torn on this issue, but talk to us about how you plan on managing that issue here.
Well, so there is some bleed over from the Reserve Street area into areas behind the wastewater treatment plant, and predominantly there have been camps set up kind of in this private property, this little nub of private property that's on the island. And it's worth noting that this area behind the wastewater treatment plant and Garden City compost has been in city ownership for decades. And it really, it's not uncommon for utilities like this to actually, purchase more land than they need, either for expansion or for buffering from adjacent areas, and to actually allow public access on some of those open lands. That's just not really been happening. Right now, there are a handful of camps that pop up every once in a while back here. And a lot of it has to do, I think, with the fact that, there's not really any active management. Folks that are coming to work in these facilities are working primarily in these facilities, and managing natural areas along the river isn't part of their job. And so from that aspect, certainly once this area, this trailhead is built and we are managing this as open space, we will actually have a crew that is trained to deal with these type of situation. And we've got a very good track record of working with city police when we do have issues and need to move people on. I think that's something that has always been a challenge for me and the community at large is, Missoula has really embraced living with natural areas within their city. Natural areas also provide great urban camping opportunities. And so, that is just kind of the way it is. And, being able to, we certainly don't want to get in a position where we throw the baby out with the bathwater and just say, hey, we need to clear cut all our natural areas, or we need to quit having natural areas because there's camping there. And so, so we really work on making sure that we're providing enough of a presence to not have resource damage in those areas. The other thing that we do find is that right now there's really no good public access down there. The public that is using it is largely going down there to camp. And so by building this trail and providing access to a large amount of people that are moving out to this area of town, I expect that as levels of beneficial and good use increase out here, what we've seen is some of that deleterious use does subside. We didn't really get into that in the rec management plan because, again, it's an incredibly complex issue, and it's really not. Besides, we do state in the plan that it is a city ordinance that you're not allowed to camp in city parks, and this is a city park, and so it really, the CLAC did not really feel, and I agree that it was necessary to really call out that we're going to be extra aggressive or really do certain things or draft within the management plan some special provision to deal with transients, because quite honestly, we're going to be dealing with them just the way we do on every other parcel that we manage in the city limits.
Yeah, I really understand how complicated that is. So thank you, Morgan.
Right.
This is, I just want to note that there's a whole continuum of unsheltered homeless who need our support and assistance, as all of you know. And we work with a team of folks from housing to enforcement to health department, both environmental and quality of life, as well as equity groups and our nonprofit social service providers to provide the best level of service we can to get as many unsheltered homeless people sheltered as possible. And then through the parks to respectfully move people along to clean up campsites as we can, and to design to a standard of guidelines called Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design, or CPTED.
This is Ross. This is Ross. I have one follow-up question, Donna. I get the idea of CPTED, and I think it makes sense. But I worry or wonder about how CPTED is working out for West Broadway Island, which is kind of similar. Like the city paid for a bridge and for that island, and now I've heard skeptics saying that it's just a bridge for homeless people. And people are you guys, is the Parks Department seeing more good use of that island because of that bridge?
We are, since the water went down and our team did a major cleanup, we have been seeing more use. Part of the improvements paid for by the Missoula Redevelopment Agency was to get improvements that provide opportunities for desired behaviors in the area. I think as the weather warms, as it is doing this week, and the water declines, we're going to see more of that. We've also run disc golf down there. We have a lot of work to do related to CPTED in that whole neighborhood, and be happy to dive deep on that in our budget items. But the main thing with CPTED is designed for desired use, have as many people engaging in desired use as possible using those facilities. Surveillance is the most important thing we can possibly do, meaning in this project, views from bridges, views from homes. This won't have views from homes, but it will have the Milwaukee Rail Corridor, which is our primary commuter route. And as Morgan mentioned, it's going to be an incredible tourism route. Those things will make this place safer.
This is Morgan. This is Margie. I have a question about restroom facilities. Is that, I don't see anything on the plans. Is that something that's because they're shorter trails, not part of this, or what's the thoughts on that?
Yeah, we don't call out restroom facilities. I think in general, the way we manage our park preserves is there's very little infrastructure beyond the trailhead. We have not closed the door on restroom facilities. For instance, we do have this Clark Fork Drive trailhead is designated as a primary trailhead. And our definition of a primary trailhead within our 2010 conservation plan says you could have a restroom there. I mean, one of our other primary trailheads that we're getting ready to put a restroom on is Waterworks Hill. Mm-hmm. We don't currently have any restrooms on any of our conservation lands or any of our conservation lands trailhead. Our local access points, I think, this, again, the plan didn't go in depth on what's going to happen at each of these trailheads because it refers back to our design standards that we have in the Conservation Lands Management Plan. But the local access trailhead is more just a sign and trash can, so you're at a city trailhead and you anticipate a lot of people walking from their homes. Coley Park itself, which is still being designed, and along the Milwaukee Trail, I mean, some of the things that have come up, I think this is an opportunity where we could have higher levels of infrastructure if we wanted to go that route. And that would be a separate design process. I mean, one of the things we heard quite a bit, and we hear this all the time when we design these major trail corridors, is water fountains as well. And, you know, adding a water fountain in a developed park or along a commuter trail is a lot easier than in the middle of an actively flooding floodplain. And so the door is not closed for that. But if any of that infrastructure did happen, it would be based on level of use and need, and of course our ability to maintain. And it would be isolated at a trailhead. And so the ones that would really make sense would be either at this Clark Fork Drive trailhead, or potentially if something went in Colin Ditch in Coley Park. Coley Park overall is a pretty small, going to be a pretty small neighborhood park, and so you know you might have a seasonal porta-john in a portalette shelter at that location.
Okay, thank you. I think that's probably a lot of the feedback I got from some of these in Waterworks Hill was, where's the toilets? And even if it's a porta potty, I think seasonal porta potty, I think that's something that I've just gotten personal feedback from people in the community. So
for sure, yeah.
Hey Morgan, this is Danny. I'm wondering if there are still acquisitions or easements that are needed to complete that section of the Milwaukee Trail there, or if it's ready to
go. So currently, you can see the JTL Knife River ponds right here. There is a property line that would come down and wrap over to this point. This is all leased. The city leases this from the Klaus family for the poplar plantation. And there is a clause in that lease that does, or we do have an easement to allow for this trail to be built, but it's got a time on it. And so we have to be able to pull together and make this connection from this point all the way to Mullen within 25 years. And I think we got 22 years left to get this easement across the Klaus family. I know there have been some discussions with JTL or Western Excavating, I think whoever owns this. And I do know that you can hardly see it on the map here, but the Schmidt Road, I know Grant is actively working on a potential acquisition. And so it's getting close. But yeah, we need, I think, another acquisition and then either some land transfers or easements between these two properties.
Great, thanks. It's exciting, and hopefully it doesn't take all of those 22 years.
I know. No, I think we're all in agreement on that.
Other questions for Morgan? And Joe, it doesn't sound like we have any public comment today. No one waiting.
I don't see anyone in the waiting room.
Okay, great. So are we ready for a motion here?
I move the Parks and Rec Board adopt the Clark Fork Islands master plan. I'm not reading off the script. Did I say that right? Adopt the Clark Fork Islands Recreation and Special Resource Management Plan.
And that was Ross. And This is Wendy. I'll second that. Any further comment on the motion? Can we take a roll call vote, please?
Ross Mollenhauer.
Aye.
Wendy Ninteman.
Aye.
Sonia Verlanik.
Aye.
Daniel Gundlach.
Aye.
Margie Costa.
Aye.
5 yeses, 0 nos, 0 abstains.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Morgan. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Morgan.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all in person someday.
Out on the trails.
That's right.
6 feet apart now.
That's right. I got my mask on. Talk to you later.
Thank you. So let's see here. Our next agenda item is the fiscal year 21 budget and CIP prioritizations. And Donna, I think you and Ryan have a presentation here.
Yes. So if you can see my screen, this is just a cursory review of the Missoula Parks and Recreation Board's for 2019 through 2021. We are moving into fiscal year 21. And I think all of you have at least seen this past and are familiar with the plan. And so I just wanted to share with you that this plan has a big strategic goal related to inclusion and social equity, as long as mental and physical health and wellness for all. It also asks that we work towards environmental health, climate resiliency, and ecosystem services. Next one is about caring for people, and that's really about caring for our employees. And there's no time like during COVID to make sure you're doing that. And then, of course, managing for growth, because we know that we are a growing community, and we manage these green spaces, riparian areas, hillsides, as well as parks, and our tree canopy has to do with achieving all of the above goals. The other thing I wanted to share with you is the city strategic plan, which
Hey, Donna, we're having trouble hearing you in the room. Can you speak up a little?
I will, and I'm going to try and turn up my mic.
Thank you.
All right. I will keep working on that and trying talking at the same time. So the city's strategic goals very much align with what the Parks and Recreation Board's goals are. There's a series of mission statement related to reflecting the needs of the residents, very much the same. The difference with the Park and Recreation goals from the city goals is largely to do with going into guiding principles or strategic goals, I'm sorry, safety and wellness again appears. And then, and of course, then that does include policing, fire, those kinds of things. We have in this goals, life-saving services, creating programs and facilities that promote equity. So our open space and master park plan play well into these things. Also, we talk about a potential partnership with Missoula County Public Schools for Lowell School Neighborhood Center, as well as a hub or community center for the community, something a normal size or a typical city our size would have 3 community centers per population. I've always believed that we don't have any because we have such great outdoor venues and such an outdoor ethic. But what we find as our population changes and with climate change, we have greater and greater need for indoor spaces. A lot about walkable communities. Again, public safety, collaboration with partners, and then we get into design and livability. Again, equitable growth, making sure that people have access to the facilities and where it pertains to parks, open spaces, and trails. Again, walkable communities, regulations that support our vision for the community, growth initiatives. Then we move into environmental quality. Huge aspect of that is, again, health and social equity, energy conservation and climate initiatives. And then we move into economic health, which obviously Parks and Recreation has a massive, both direct and indirect impact on that, because we are a desirable community. We do attract business and we do retain business and we retain professionals as well. And then, of course, we do provide a number of jobs ourselves, and it's a very livable community. And then there's organizational excellence, which is about leadership, training, standardization. And some of the things that I really like is looking through the lens of keeping our employees safe, but really important, looking through the lens of social equity. With that, what we did, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, is we created some criteria in trying to rank our budget and CIP items. And so Ryan, if you're on, keep sharing my screen, I will. Otherwise, you can take over.
Sure. I think I'm unmuted now. And I may take over because I have some stuff on my computer, but we can stay here for now. So yeah, we just really went through and tried to identify the main components for which we should view and rank our projects and our budget requests through. And so we referenced the two documents Donna was just reviewing and came up with this kind of matrix to look at our projects and our budget requests through the lens of safety and wellness, equity and access. And we separated each into two components, the kind of lands and infrastructure components, and then the people and society, because we work in both of those areas. Environmental quality, and then impact and readiness. So we tried to go through all of our projects and, you know, identify what these projects, if it's their CIPs or what these annual budget requests, do they really forward the city's strategic goals, the park board strategic goals through this lens. And so I think I'm gonna try to share my screen now. And lots of stuff. Share. And pull up just one more thing. There's that. Oh, I want to be here. And so getting more towards the packet that was forwarded for your review. I want to spend, I believe, most of the time on the annual budget requests and review those, and then go into the newer CIPs for that will be forwarding in fiscal year 21. So is there any questions on that first part, or things people want to share that I cover? Okay, well, this may be hard to see on the screen. I'm opening it up a little bit. This is our rankings for our current year budget requests that would increase Park District budget in support of either recreation programming, equity goals, and base park operations. We always usually start with a utility increase that is just something put out by finance that says this is what water, electric, fuel may increase. So that's our kind of baseline adjustment. We also have a 3-year plan to implement funding from the CLM levy. So the number 2 request is what was basically the second year of what was approved by City Council via resolution for use of the Conservation Land Stewardship Levee. The third request is a CLM research coordinator that would be funded by Park District. And so that would be a big help in doing the researching and monitoring that helps us get funding through other sources than Park District. Then we get into a lot of kind of developed parks requests, and there are a lot of stuff that was unfunded through last year's budget requests or partially funded, and we're asking for the difference to be continued to be funded. That is the unfunded annexation related to Redford Park, when the city annexed in the airport area, including Redford Park. We were funded for the urban forestry components of the annexation, but not for the Redford Park actual take care of. That's based on an MIS. The other one, the next one is Montana Department of Transportation's. This is mostly an unfunded request related to the Russell Street Bridge and associated underpass and landscaping that was not funded in fiscal year 20. And it is based on an MIS and also a need for funding. Unfunded developed parks is mostly Jeffrey Park and Montana Rail Link Park. Again, this was partially funded in fiscal year 20, but not funded for the employees, specifically intermittent employees needed to do the day-to-day maintenance of the park. Then we have an aquatic funding request, which will help to, it's a continued request. We were funded partially again in fiscal year 20 to help offset some of the employees that are at the front desk and are registering people for all programs. Currently, that is burdened by the aquatics fund, and we're trying to kind of right size that funding of where that comes from. Related to the equity is a community-based program ask. This is about the potential of developing a community center-like programming at Lowell School. And that is, we feel, a very relevant and high need request. And as we go through and rank, it's really hard for us to put numbers to it because we feel that these are all very important items, or they wouldn't be on this list. But we continue to ask for what we need and give the reasoning for it. Unfunded trails is a request that has been funded partially for the last 2 years, and it's a continuation of what has not been funded in there. The park asset management requests, we're currently sitting at $100,000 appropriated to do smaller projects for cyclical maintenance needs around the system. Our 2014 park asset management plan indicates that we need in 2014 dollars around closer to $300,000 to keep up, and a significant increase in labor associated with that. So this is an incremental increase to go from $100,000 to $150,000, and will most likely be a continual ask in years to try to get up to what our park asset management plan is wanting us to be at. And
I think this is a spot to just hold for a second.
Yeah.
So, Mayor's says is that there won't be an increase in property, that we're hoping that growth delivers the necessary increased funds to just meet the increasing costs of living, if you will. We don't know how we'll do our request. We are also, as a city, I'm hoping for a considerable reimbursement through the CARES Act. Our obviously limited in time, and we have CIP items to show you as well. But in budget, that's our operating, that's our day-to-day, season to season operating budget. And as Ryan explained, super difficult to be able to rank or so much of the funding of the unfunded or never funded items is about trying to stay whole. So as we add pieces of bread to the loaf, increase the size of the peanut butter jar, it's really getting rather thin. And at the same time, something that COVID has revealed to all of us is the incredible need our community has for the outdoors, for physical and mental health and ability to be outdoors. And we know that as we go into our indoor season, hopefully not too soon because of fires, that we will have some ways to address continuation of childcare. I mean, our camps have been one of the few that continue to run through the summer, and we've received an incredible amount of positive feedback and support for our COVID best practices and the fact that we're holding camps. And so that social equity piece at Lowell School Partnership is huge for us. And I can leave it there unless folks have questions and let Ryan run through the CIP, and then we'll try and wrap it up and get you out of here in about 13 minutes.
All right, let me get back to CIPs, and there are a number that I'm not going to go over in your packet, which are the kind of the geo bond related CIP updates. The other than geo bond CIP updates, large ones there that are moving forward are Northside Head Bridge and the Westside Park. And then we spend a little time on new CIPs for fiscal year 21. This is where council will be considering the fiscal year 21 funding levels for these CIPs. There's a large kind of necessary riverbank stabilization behind Ogden Field that we're proposing to be in conjunction with MRA to do in fiscal year 21 and 22. The Northside Park Diamond would be a larger project, which would start being in the process of designing and master planning in fiscal year 21. Redford Park, which we were just looking at the master plan for in fiscal year 21, which would be on the CIP at Park District funded for phase 1. And then cyclical maintenance and aquatics. This covers a liner replacement to the 50-meter pool and in fiscal year 21 and some other cyclical maintenance items that are needed at the pools. Some funding comes from approved cyclical maintenance funds for the aquatics, and we're trying to build that in our annual appropriations. There isn't enough balance in the aquatics fund, and as you can imagine, it is having a tough end of fiscal year 20 and a slow start to fiscal year 21, with us working really hard to keep open, and the revenue is significantly down because of our capacity limitations. And then we go through West Broadway Island improvements, which is an improvement needed, I think, mostly because of flooding, and that is an MRA project as well. Greeno trail repairs to keep that secondary commuter trail from having the asphalt getting too far behind on being able to be repaired. Working with the community members for Bonner Park bandshell upgrades. And then Sacagawea spray deck will be working to get a portalet, a shelter, and upgrades to the spray deck feature. Yeah, and as we go through, Pleasant View Park is also a neighborhood park-led master plan update, working on the funding there. And then some pavement preservation, potential for large grants in that area. Commuter trail expansion. This has some bond funding in it, as well as other funding, but to get our commuter trails up from 10 feet to 14 feet, which is a new AASHTO, I think, requirement. And, you know, I'm more on the budget side, so specific park, I'm learning a lot, you know, going through and working with all the managers on all of the different parks and projects we have, but I'm definitely not the person who knows the details of all of them. So we have a Honeysuckle Park master planning efforts, Nikpada, and then a Greeno Park restroom replacement as a potential too on our new CIPs for fiscal year 21. I think an overall between the updates and new CIPs for 21 and then out year CIPs, the Parks Department is in various stages of about 60 projects right now. And so it was a really large undertaking every year to make sure that we keep them all moving and prioritized, and that we, you know, do our best to work with our community members and to move things forward as we can. So I think that's the presentation or the update I have on budget. We do have a referral item or an action item for Park Board, which I will try to bring up here, which is, you know, entertaining questions for sure, and recommending and hopeful that the Park Board will support the departmental prioritizations for fiscal year 21 annual budget enhancement requests. Happy to answer questions to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Ryan and Donna. Questions? No questions from the board? And what was that?
So if I may, this is Donna, while we're waiting to see if anybody has any questions or comments. Our next steps is Ryan and I will be putting together a bit more of a pictorial and graphic presentation for City Council, and highlighting the criteria and what changes, why is this important, either to our place or the people who live in this place. And so it'll be very focused on the end user. The presentation will be on one of the Wednesdays, either July 22nd, 29th, August 5th. We anticipate getting Department of Revenue numbers the week of August 17th, probably, and then adoption will happen sometime in mid to late August. We would certainly entertain any of your feedback. We understand that this is not a particular easy decision or recommendation for you to make, but we think it's really important for you as our advisory board on management of all things that Parks and Recreation does for our community, and how we would add any funds that we might get to our operations.
questions? It doesn't look like we have anything from the public, Donna.
Okay.
So if there are no questions, is there a motion from the board? This is Wendy. I'll go ahead and make the motion that we support the Parks and Rec departmental prioritizations for the fiscal year 21 annual budget enhancement requests. Is there a second?
This is Margie. I second the motion.
Any further comment on the motion? And can we have a roll call vote?
Ross Mullenhour,
Aye.
Wendy Ninteman,
Aye.
Sonia Verlanick,
Aye.
Daniel Gundlach,
Aye.
Margie Costa.
Aye.
We have 5 yeses, 0 nos, and 0 abstains.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one more comment too, if this is Ryan, if anyone has any specific questions, I know Margie, I was trying to contact you about returning your call. We do have everything broken down in specific projects with narratives on all of these, which I'm happy to share. We were just trying to get it into a summarized portion, but please reach out for any other specific questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. So Donna, do we have, is there an item under 3.1?
Yeah, I don't know. With the last couple of minutes, I think the primary things are we're continuing with the downtown North Riverside Parks and Trails. So look for a presentation from Nathan and a request for adoption probably in September. We continue to work with the Mullen area master planning. We are slowly advancing various space projects. There's been, like everywhere else, a pretty significant slowdown, if you will. But we're also embarking and setting ourselves up for this winter to develop a turf management plan that reduces use of chemicals. And we're continuing to work on community center initiatives, both as a hub at Currents and with Lowell. We're participating in the Bill Grant, the downtown master planning process. And then as I think Morgan explained earlier, trying to extend our trail system. One of our big asks with trails for expansion is widening and lighting, because we have seen an uptick in use in parks and trails, and we do actually expect that to continue. And the last thing I have for you is I'd be remiss to not share with you how incredible this group of employees has been during COVID, and we have been open all the way through. We have pool hours and lap swim and swimming lessons, summer camps and sports programs. And while we are doing what everybody else is and doing our very best in staying safe and free of COVID and not transmitting anything, we obviously regularly are having employees get tested for symptoms, because basically symptoms from asthma is a symptom that qualifies. And it gets harder and harder as things seem to be closing in on us. To date, we have been successful. I mentioned earlier how pleased customers seem to be. I'm not going to tell you that we never get a complaint. We do. But they have been generally very, very pleased with our COVID practices and their sense of safety. The new face covering rule by the health department, by the health officer, has been helpful. We already had that in the Parks Department for indoor facilities, but it's always helpful to have a little bit more teeth in it than Parks and Rec said so. We are currently planning for fall programs. Our program delivery is probably about 70% of the norm, maybe as low as 60, but our camp numbers are awesome. And then our staffing is down maybe about 20% because we can't get enough folks hired, and then probably goes up, but it wavers between 20 and 30 while people are out waiting for COVID test results. And like I said, so far they've been coming back negative, and we are very quick to test. The last thing I can share with you though is testing is becoming difficult. We were able to get folks in early this week within the day or two, but there are starting to be waits of 2 to 5 days to get tested, and results 7 to 10 days out, which is not good because it's a 14-day quarantine period. And we are now working with the mayor's office and the health department to see if we can get some sentinel testing back or rapid testing back for our staff, because we work with so many members of the public. And of course, always trying to stay outdoors and distant with face covers on, but things happen that you don't want to have happen. So that's my update.
Hey, Donna,
Oh,
excuse me.
Thank you, Donna.
Donna, I have a quick question. This is Sonia. On the camps, did you see the numbers go down? Because I know before this all started, you had a huge waiting list, or have they been pretty steady?
The numbers are good. They haven't really gone down from participation. The waiting lists aren't as long, and I think what we're seeing is a lot of turnover. So in any given camp, for example, maybe 50% of the original people who are signed up stay with the camp, and we have a new 50% that come on board that were probably on the waiting list. So in the end, still full.
Wow, good. Thank you.
And Donna, this is Wendy. I would just echo kind of what you were saying about the Parks and Rec staff, but also the management. I have heard so many positive comments from the community about the way specifically that you are still offering camps and the way you're doing business and people feeling safe. And again, the equity of who loses out if we don't do those summer camps. I want to say thanks for some really great leadership by you and your team through this time. It's phenomenal to think of everything you have to deal with in addition to all the things that the rest of us do. So thank you so much. And is there anything else anyone would like to say before we adjourn?
No, I would just like to second what Wendy said and applaud Donna and the Parks and Rec department for being able to continue to offer all the services you did to the public in a safe manner. I mean, that's quite a story to tell. So well done.
Thank you. Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Wendy, and all of you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate your support.
It's kind of unbelievable. So huge kudos. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And that was Ross.
Yeah, it was Ross.
And Wendy on the second. And can we have a roll call vote?
We don't need to roll call.
We don't need to. Okay, great.
We're
The
good.
meeting is adjourned, and thanks everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.